Welcome to the Caregivers Lounge, where we dive into the laughter, love, and lessons of caregiving. Because let's be real, this journey is unpredictable. I'm Shaunte Newby, your host, and whether you're caring for aging parents, deep in the caregiving trenches, just starting out, or simply curious about this world, you found the right place. Here, we share stories, swap insights, and remind each other that no one has to do this alone. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's unwind together.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the Caregivers Lounge, your corner of calm in the chaos of caregiving. I'm your host, Shaunte, and today we're going to talk about something that hits deep. What happens when you have to leave? So whether it's for a work trip, a family emergency, and yes, even vacation, the decision to step away can stir up all kinds of feelings. Sometimes we may feel guilty. I know that I worry. Sometimes there's a little bit of relief to kind of get away from it, all of it. So we're going to talk about when you have to leave your loved one. And what's special about this episode is that I am actually not at home. I am traveling myself as I create this episode. And of course, by the time you see this episode, I'm back at home because I know not to let anybody know in these internets when I'm out of town. So with that said, by the time you see this, by the time you hear this, I'm back at home cuddling with my little puppy Bentley. So let's start with the truth. Caregivers are allowed to rest, but man, doesn't it feel like you need to justify it to everyone, including yourself, when you need to take a break? You might be thinking to yourself, what if something happens when I'm gone? Or am I being selfish because I need a break? I know I've been there. And all I want you to hear is this. Taking care of yourself is part of taking care of them. I found this really interesting quote. I don't know who to credit it to, but the quote was, "You're not abandoning your role. You're honoring humanity. You're actually recharging yourself too." So whether you're leaving for a conference or a cruise, peace of mind starts with a plan. Not a perfect plan, but one that helps you breathe a little easier. So I usually have a few actions to kind of help me relieve my anxiety about leaving. One thing is, if it's possible, identify a trusted backup, a person that you can have that'll either, depending on your situation, they can either stay with your loved one, or in my case, check on my loved one. Please, that's what I ask. They just check on my loved one. Typically, I can write out a daily routine or a care schedule. So if there's things that's supposed to happen while I'm gone, leave a list of actions, text it to the person, or I create like a note that we can collaborate on. So write out a daily routine or care schedule. Definitely leave emergency contacts. Yes, who to call if and when, depending on how far you are and where you are in the world. I know that I've been international, so I had to have people that could handle things in my absence, or at least reach me without any issues. You also should leave their medication lists. Definitely important, because if there is a medical emergency, I know some of the first things they ask for is, what kind of medication is your loved one taking? And if there's any insurance info, leave that all in one place. I particularly like to have all that digital. So if anything happens, I can just email, text it to anyone right away. So while you're absent, take advantage of tech tools. There are some check-in apps. You're doing 360 or sharing your location on your phones, Google, Apple, whatever you're using, so you can see where your loved one is going if they are partly independent. Make video calls so you can have face contact, eye contact, just to get that reassurance and reminder that you're okay, they're okay, and you'll be back soon. And of course, the medication reminders. I mentioned that on one of the episodes, that with my father, I had his reminders on his phone of the medication that he has to take and the time that he has to take it. Fortunately, it's only 2 times a day, so it's not as complicated as it was before. If you are preparing meals for your loved ones, prepare before you leave and label them day by day to make it easier for them. Another thing I like to do is at least let a neighbor know that I'll be away. And with that, they already know what that means. They'll check on my dad. He's one of the people that'll come outside every day. So I have a neighbor that literally looks for him to come outside. And the time that he doesn't come outside, she's calling me like, have you talked to your dad today? Which scares me every single time. But I know lately it's been really hot. So he's been inside soaking up that air condition that we got fixed a few episodes ago. I don't know if I mentioned it. I did mention it. I had to schedule an appointment to get his air conditioner fixed. I know that I mentioned I have a caregiver notebook, so I actually use that too in prepping to leave. Anything that I need to do, any actions before I go. Typically with my dad, I have it's actually the same routine every time I leave town. It's making sure he has some cash because he doesn't like using electronic money. Uh, Making sure his medications are all packaged and organized for at least a few weeks, even though I'm only gone a few days, and letting some folks know that I'm going away, and then making sure that he has everything he needs before I go. All right, well, let's get into when you have to talk to your loved one. Sometimes that's the hardest part, letting your loved one know you're going out of town. And I know I've had a series of travel that it seemed like every other week I was going somewhere. I'm either going on a cruise or going on a trip to somewhere in the country or just going out of the country. And I tell my dad, like, hey, I'm getting ready to go out of town. I give him a heads up about maybe a week. But what happens is every day he's like, are you leaving tomorrow? Are you leaving tomorrow? And I'm like, no, I got 1 week. So he tracks it, and it's also cool with him calling to make sure that I get to my destination okay. And it's like I'm in my 40s, and I tell you, it doesn't get old when your parents want to check on you. I remember a time when it probably annoys you when your parents would check on you when you were kind of probably in your 20s. You're like, I'm grown, but now I'm in my 40s. I think it's so cute that he checks on me to make sure that I got to my destination okay. So sometimes the hardest part isn't the planning, right? It's the conversation with your loved one. You don't want your loved one to feel abandoned or confused, but you want to be honest and you want to pair it with reassurance. Okay. So here's some things that you could probably tell them. I'm going away for a few days, but I made sure everything is in place. Right. Or you could tell them, you're not alone. I've got people checking in and I'll call you every day. And if they feel some kind of way about you traveling, acknowledge their feelings and your own. You know, I have to admit sometimes I'm scared to leave because I'm worried about things that will happen because things have happened while I was away. So I got a little bit of PTSD when I travel and someone calls me to give me an update about something that may have happened with my dad. Literally, he was in a car accident when I went away about a year ago, and everything that I had in place, it's like I used my support system to help me navigate this whole situation, and to add to the fact he didn't have his phone on him. So I couldn't even call him. I couldn't locate him. I had to pinpoint where he was based on the phone calls I got. Needless to say, he was so happy when his friend and neighbor found him. She found him based on the information that I gave her, and not to mention she saw his car being towed and she followed the tow truck. It's a long story, but the short story is it happened on a bridge. He's okay. It was just a lot of damage to his car, and the other person involved, they were okay too. It was one of those, nobody knows really how it happened and what happened. So all that to say, you can see that when I leave town, I'm a little bit nervous. I am. I have to admit it. I'm a little bit nervous and apprehensive because sometimes things don't go as planned. Even with all the planning that you do, things can go sideways. There could be a time where your loved one misses a medication, or you had someone in place to do something and they flake on you. Or, like I shared, you get a call you didn't expect. And if any of you have read the book, Your Name is Joseph, I share with you how I landed in this caregiver role because my father had a stroke and I was literally out of town. I lived out of town, but I was even more out of town that day when I got the phone call that he was in the hospital. And definitely read the book if you want more insight on how that experience went. Your Name is Joseph is available on Amazon, Barnes and Nobles, and all your places where you can get books. It's also on audiobook, narrated by yours truly. So it's out there if you're curious about it. So it's important that you show that you're flexible and that there's grace, because sometimes your loved one will make a mistake because you're not there and the person that's with them don't really know that it's a mistake, and just have some grace. If it's not anything that's significant, that's harmful to them, does any damage, I had to remind myself not to freak out. But because I was scared of what would happen if my dad doesn't take his medication the way he's supposed to, I used to freak out. Like, what do you mean you didn't take it? And so now I've gotten to the point where, it's okay. If he missed it one day, or if he took the nighttime during the daytime, he knows the ramifications of that and he won't let that happen again. So definitely emphasis on flexibility and grace. And for you listeners who are in the caregiving role, responsible for your parents or for another loved one, I want you to focus on what you can control and not on what you can't. Because remember, caregiving isn't about perfection, it's about presence. It's about being there, even when you're not physically there. There's a way to have that feeling of you being there and you physically not being there. So I mentioned calling and stuff like that. In the end, I just want you to know, overall, you deserve joy. Okay? So let's talk about vacation. Because I know there's trips that you have to take, like the business trips, but there's trips that you have to take, like vacation. And most people want to say, oh, vacation is a luxury, but you have to take a vacation. You need to recharge. If you can afford it, to do it with time and money, please take vacation. I'm not talking about having to run errands. I'm not talking about going away for a conference. I'm talking about taking a real break, because guess what? You deserve joy too. I have to say that again. You deserve joy too. You deserve to laugh. You deserve to rest. You deserve to be somewhere where no one needs anything from you. You deserve that moment to be just you. I know I love it when I can be just Shaunte and not Shaunte getting up to walk the dog, or Shaunte answering a question, or Shaunte doing some research to figure out what the next therapy is for something, or some new trend that came out, or if you know me closely, or if you know my dad, researching coins. I'll save that for another conversation. Hopefully I can figure out how to make that interesting for you. But my dad is a coin collector, and it's an interesting time. I got some interesting videos about that too. So I just want you to understand too that when you get away, it doesn't have to be a 2-week long vacation. It doesn't have to be a 1-week vacation. It could be a quick weekend. It can be an overnight, but just do something that will recharge you. Sometimes it doesn't have to be any wild activities. It could be going away, staying in a hotel room and watching TV for 24 hours. Just do something that will restore your energy and maybe even restore your perspective about how things are going. So I'm going to encourage you to plan something. If you haven't been getting away, this is your sign. This is your permission to plan something, even if it's an overnight getaway. Plan something. And know that you're not stepping away from caregiving. You're stepping towards sustainability, towards recharging, towards replenishing. So I want to ask you, have you ever had to leave town while caregiving? And if you did, what helped you prepare? What do you wish you'd done differently? You can send me a private message, leave me a voice note. You can send an email to caregiverslounge@icloud.com. caregiverslounge@icloud.com. And I'd love to share your story in a future episode. Or if you feel like it, I would love to have you on here and you can share your story in a conversation with me. No pressure, but I know some people have caregiving stories that they just don't want to let people know that they are going through. And I understand that. I feel that way sometimes when things happen, but I also know in conversation that I'm not alone. So in closing, I want you to know, being a caregiver doesn't mean you never leave. It means you care enough to plan, you care enough to communicate, and to trust that love can stretch across miles, and you can give from a distance. I am a believer. I can actually testify to that. I remember having to make calls and coordinating and putting different people in certain places to even arrange with that car accident. I called some of my dad's friends, actually one of his really close friends, to help me. And he actually helped me get the car towed. And oh, it was a blessing. It relieved a lot of stress for me. I spent a few hours on the phone that day out of town trying to coordinate it, but even still, I was still caregiving and taking care of my dad from a distance. So just know that you are not failing. You are human. And you, my friend, are doing better than you think. So this is the Caregivers Lounge. I'm Shaunte. Until next time, pack your peace of mind and keep your heart close. Take that trip. Okay? Take that trip. Take that trip. Take that trip.